Welcome to the first High Heels and Ceiling series. The first one we'll be talking about is the art of leadership. And I will be taking you through some of the presentations, and we've got parameters also going to guide you through some of the conversations. We'll have a little bit of a chat. Also, a good opportunity for you to be able to reflect for yourself, to think for yourself. And if you're working through this, as an online module, you'll also get a chance to pause, to use some of the resources that we've provided for you online to be able to work through this yourself and also think through some of the questions that we pose on here, right? So this is the Art of Leadership. It's a 10-month program where we meet on a monthly basis. You also have access to things online, resources, and we also have a wonderful retreat in the south of France in Cannes, where it is a 3-day retreat and you get to actually work in community, right? So the High Heels and Glass Ceilings series is not just something where I'm talking at you, but it's something you experience. And a key part of it is also to be able to work in community, right? So you work in community, and through those connections, you actually learn from each other, you support each other, you grow and access your own wisdom, right? So my dream with this is for you to be able to have that community. We always talk about the boys club. We want to have a women's club, right? A women's club where we actually supporting each other and we uplifting each other and opening doors for each other as well, right? So this is the ultimate dream. Whenever we come into a space, there's always something we're bringing with us, right? So there could be whatever happened this morning, there could be a number of other things that have been going on, a meeting that you've gone through before, or whatever's on top of your mind, right? So think about it for yourself as we welcome you. What is one word that describes what you are showing up with, right? So it could be a feeling, it could be a thought, or something else. So I will go with myself. I'll go first. I think I'm excited. I'm excited for the possibility of what this could bring to the world. This is something that I am showing up with. I'm excited to the women that will be joining as well. Paramita, what is the one word that you have?
I would say a sense of new beginnings for the program itself. I would say I share your excitement, and I also share, I think with you, we have this in common, Rachel, a sense of creating a space which is generative,
Yeah.
where we generate thoughts, we generate ideas, we generate mutuality, we generate support, and yeah, this is work I absolutely love. I have led a women's leadership retreat, and I must say, there is something so special about it. So, as that's kind of the journey, end of the road, start with the beginning and the end in mind. That's what is already, I'm kind of anticipating how wonderful the journey towards it is going to be.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right. So one of the things I want to do, you'll see a couple of cards here. And it seems like we're going to play a game, but I'll tell you a little bit of what we're going to do. But for yourself to choose a card, you don't have to tell us what it is. So as soon as you have the card, Paramita, have you got one card that you've chosen?
I have, yes.
Okay, great. All right, I have my card. So, what I want you to do for the rest of the session and also possibly for the rest of today is to keep that card in mind and think of the word that is on there and think of your interactions with anything that's happening in this session, but also throughout the day and see where it shows up, right? So, the skill we're practicing here is noticing. One of the things that's really important for leaders is to be able to notice what's happening, right? Don't keep your head down and keep going, but really be able to notice in the interactions and in as you progress through the day. Okay, we'll come back to it later. Okay, so a little bit on how we're going to work. I shared very briefly. There's 3 different pillars to how we're going to work, and you see that we've got the high heels and glass ceilings, which is a 10-month journey. The first one is we'll start with the leadership webinar, just like this. We'll get to share a little bit on what the particular topic we're talking about, and of course, we'll get some input from you on what are the key things you want to learn about leadership, right? And from the leadership webinar, we'll share a half an hour, 45 minutes, depending on what is being shared. We'll share a little bit on our expertise. And then the second one is we're going to go into communities, right? So we're going to have your stories where you share your stories with us. You share your challenges, and then we also go to some strategies, right? So not just what Paramita or and I are going to tell you as strategies, but what have you learned, right? What have you learned from each other? What have you learned in your own way of dealing with things so that we can actually share the wisdom across the groups. So that's the second pillar or the second circle that we'll work on. And then, of course, within the webinar, we'll also have group coaching where you get to access collective wisdom from each other, but also from the coaches, right? So Paramita and I will be sitting in the group sessions, the coaching sessions, and asking you a couple questions, right? To be able to access your own knowledge and also to be able to learn from each other, as I said. So with group coaching, what's really important, I always say this, I don't know about you, Paramita, but I always say what works for me does not work for you, right? So when we are coaching, it's always good for you to be able to say what is okay for you to do. Because what I would do might not necessarily be something that you're comfortable with and might not necessarily work in the environment that you're in. What do you say something similar to that, Parameter?
Yes, what I would say here is taking the term that you use of accessing collective wisdom. I think when people get together, there's so much more than the sum of the parts.
Yeah.
And there might be one little detail in somebody's story which rings true for you, and you can integrate it, have the boldness and the courage to try it out. But at the end of the day, it's the capacity to learn from each other, which is the real power of group coaching, because we cannot sit by ourselves or even with one individual coach and access all that. So it's the multiplier effect of
Yes.
group coaching, I think, and the collective. And that itself also manages to build the community. So we're kind of going to this second circle back there.
Yes, and they all link, right? So that's a
Absolutely.
fantastic segue where they all link together because it doesn't help if I tell you this is what people do in order to be a leader, right? Sharing the expertise, whereas your challenges might be different and it needs to be very personalized, right? And then also to be able to access what are some of the things that other leaders, other people in your community are doing and what's worked, right? So it really does link together. Okay. All right. So, a reflection, and I think for each group it's going to be different. So I put a couple things in there. You see a couple blocks of different types of challenges, but a reflection for you. What is the biggest barrier that women face when it comes to leading? So we're not going to give you the answer, but we're going to ask you to reflect on it, right? So depending on where you are, there might be some different barriers that women face. I think at some point leaders have one of these different barriers, right? And I've heard of all of them. I've heard of some others. So is it lack of confidence or self-belief? Paramita was mentioning in an introduction, imposter syndrome. We have a lot of that where leaders say, especially women say that they struggle with imposter syndrome. We've got bias and discrimination in the organizations. We have work-life balance and care responsibilities, right? We have lack of good networks, rules of the game that weren't designed for women, right? The system that we work in wasn't quite designed for women. And how do we overcome that? How do we work within that system? And then not enough role models who look like me. I can definitely say that's something I've struggled with growing up, or something else. So parameter, maybe, and these are not the answers, right? But what is
Sure.
something, when you look at this, would you say something that you faced when working with women in leadership?
Some of the common things that come up, and women often do not refer to it because they often kind of give the reason as being outside them.
Yeah.
And I have, in the work I do with women, made them examine what it is within them that might be holding them back, and which is why, I have something that I say about it is the glass ceiling really in your own mind,
Yeah.
and is the biggest barrier is within yourself. So that could be the something else. But I also find that all these blocks which you've put out so well, Rachel, connect very well with each other because, lack of confidence or self-belief comes from the fact that, if you've not been fed enough good stories about yourself or good pats on the back as you were younger, maybe, you haven't built that up. And then, bias and discrimination, it's a long story to get really completely rid of it. Everyone has their policies and so on, but sometimes it's just, a little bit of whitewashing. Now, I see a clear link between work life balance and care responsibilities. They often fall more to women, even though that's not always the case. And that's precisely what does not give them enough time to be active in networks because, they say, well, by the time I'm done with work and go home and all that. So that also links to the fact that those are the rules of the game. Networks are part of the rules and they don't have access to that. And about the role models, sadly, Rachel, sometimes women tend to use males as their role models and they end up being kind of caricatures of what good women leaders could look like because they don't have those role models and maybe they're not enough of them to go around yet. But the idea of a program like ours is to be able to encourage women to become their own role models and to enlarge that space around them for others who are also looking for the same thing. So that's what I thought I'd add.
Yeah, I like the part of is it within you, is it outside of you, right? And it's always the answer usually when you ask me in any programs, I always say it's both because the world is complex. It's really being able to work with yourself and work outside of things, but of course it starts inside you first, right? So really being able to do the inner work, and this is what we want to focus on today, is focusing on the inner work, right? How do you work on yourself? Because the more you work on your identity, on your confidence, on your purpose, it will help you to be able to, in terms of how you show up, right?
Absolutely.
I've seen all of these. I've seen lack of good networks. We will be covering that later on in one of the modules on networking. How do you network as a woman? And also, how do you manage that when you've got other things going on, right? What is the way that we need to network? And maybe it is that we need to create a different way of networking. Research has shown that women do not network like men. We build on relationships, right? So we build on relationships because this is the way we were socialized. We socialized to be able to take care of other people. We socialized to be able to see other people, build trust over time, and it's different. It's different from men and the way they do network. I absolutely hate going to networking events. I feel like it's so shallow. I don't. Most of my good community of colleagues and friends and not I've never met in networking um, events. It's been through getting to know them, learning how to trust them, learning how to share, and also even just learning how to vent. Sometimes we just want to vent. We know what the answer is, but we just want to vent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to cover a story very quickly before we move on in terms of lack of confidence. I used to work as a lecturer, and one of the things that really struck me when I was working as a lecturer was I was doing an exam, and I had two people. One was a young lady that came in to do a presentation, and one was a young man that came in to do their presentation for an exam. And it was quite ironic because I had them back to back. So I had the young man in, he presented on leadership, completely incorrect. Everything was made up, was definitely not prepared for the exam. But with 100% confidence, he presented. And at the end, he said, "So, did I pass?" And I had to give some feedback and say, "No, you did not pass. I lectured you, during the semester. I shared the leadership theory. I know what the answers are. You did not pass." And then straight after, I had a young lady come in and she presented. Body language did not display confidence. but she knew her stuff inside out. She knew all the theory, the questions are asked her, she answered it to perfection. And at the end, she said, did I pass? And this was something that made me angry. But I see it in all the women that I work with, in all the different levels of leadership, where you have this. You have someone, unfortunately, who's male that has a 100% confidence, and a woman who knows things inside out that does not have the confidence. And this is something we really want to work on to be able to say, okay, so you've done the work, you know what you need to do. What do you need to do to be able to project that? Yeah. We'll talk about a bit about that. We'll talk about the parameters. The glass ceiling is inside you, so we'll have lots of conversations on that. I wanted to share just briefly the global picture, right? So these are some statistics. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's really interesting to see the global picture. 33.5% of women in senior leadership globally. And that's from 2024, right? So not even close to 50% of the population, which is, I think women are now about 51% of the population. 33.5% of women in senior leadership. 29% of women in C-suite positions, right? A big improvement from 17% in 2015, but 29%. Fortune 500 CEOs who are women, approximately 11%, very low. And the time it'll take to close the global economic gender gap at the current pace is 136 years, right? So we're hoping to be able to have a little bit of an impact, maybe more than just a little bit of an impact in there. And then you do have the European landscape. 30, so compared to the 33.5, Europe is doing somewhat better. 34.8% in managerial positions, 44% in management share in the EU, Sweden being the highest, right? And 22%, right, with Luxembourg be having the lowest female management. And CEO positions, C-suite positions, 1 in 7, right? It's pretty low.
That's
So
about 15%. Yes, and I must say the brighter picture in Europe is because there's been a conscious policy to
yes,
increase quotas for women and so on. And so it looks like, it's having some impact. So that's good to know. It's a good step forward.
it's a good step forward, but we need to do more, right?
Still
So
lots to be done.
there's still a
Absolutely.
lot to be done. And the numbers, are great to have, but of course, we want to be able to change the environment as well, right? Because it doesn't
Absolutely.
help to hire women into senior roles, but the culture is not really, open or accepting of women in leadership. So it works against women. So we've seen some positions where we've had women in leadership, but the culture was so toxic that women have ended up leaving the organization, and we go back to the same position, right? So what we want is to have enough women into managerial positions or C-suite positions so that they can also start changing the culture. It doesn't end up being a woman in a man's environment, right? So that you have to adjust as well.
Yeah, where she has to do all the adapting and all the struggling. So it's about creating a ripple effect of an ethos around her where other women can flourish. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And also seeing the feminine energy, right? The value of the
Absolutely.
feminine energy. You probably know this more than I do, Paramita, the yin and the yang, right? So being
Hmm.
able to balance each other off really in a good way. Okay. So this brings us to the art of leadership. So the art of leadership, I've already given you a little bit of a taster. We're going to use this to reimagine leadership, but really focusing on your inner development. And we'll start with, of course, purpose and identity. We'll talk about connection. We'll also work on getting some clarity, right? Clarity for yourself. Who are you? What are some of the things that that really pull you forward, right? So if you think of your true north and your purpose, what is that thing that's guiding you? You know, Paramita and I both shared about our own story, what guided us to what we're doing. And when you have that conviction and that clarity, it really does help in terms of how you show up, in terms of confidence and also presence, right? And of course, finally, we also talk about wisdom, being able to have a space to be able to learn from yourself, learn from each other, and say, okay, so what's the one thing I need to do, right? What's the key thing that I need to do that's really important? So I'm looking forward to this. Paramita, do you have anything to add in terms of inner development?
No, I think it's very well put, and I see clearly the connection between all of them, and they're all interlinked. There's a lovely red thread, as they call it, and I
Yes.
would say if you invert it, it ends up at the top of the pyramid is the wisdom, and yeah, it's a very good set of things to be working on.
Yes, great. And I like the picture of the shining the light, right? So finding
Yes,
that light within you that's going to guide.
absolutely. That's a beautiful one. Yes, I totally agree.
All right. So with the art of leadership, what we're going to do, I'm not going to be giving you lots of theory, of course. We're going to be just focusing on a few poems and a few artwork. And this might be something where you need to take a pause, think for yourself on, some poems or some piece of reading, book that you've read or even some artwork that really has inspired you, where you felt like, this means something to me. I recognize it. I resonate with it. So I've put in The Road Not Taken, so by Robert Frost.
This is a poem which means a lot to me, as I told you, Rachel, because I took a very divergent road when I quit diplomacy, much to the disappointment of many. And I also watched a film in this beautiful foliage of autumn in the US. And Robert Frost as a beautifully white-haired gentleman reading his own poem. Not all
Oh,
poets read their own poems very well, but he does, you know. So, The Road Not Taken, Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveller. Long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference.
oh, that's beautifully read. Thank you very much. So really thinking about it for us and thinking about it for yourself, what does this mean? And Paramita, I know you said when you read this, it really resonated with you. So maybe you can share first, and then I will share why I thought this was something that was meaningful.
Yeah, well, as I said very briefly, the road which I could have taken was the one which, as I said, would have taken me to the career of an ambassador for 20 plus years, and I got that job through a very, very stiff competition. It's supposed to be one of the 10 toughest in the world, and so people are kind of aghast when I just gave it up. But I was following my own true north, which meant that that was not where I should be. And I took definitely the one less traveled down because everybody who got into the service with me, they carried on and they all retired, as ambassadors. And I'm still carrying on my road, which is to be a coach and to help others find their roads and to have the courage also, if need be, to take the path less trodden by, because that's what helps you to kind of, I guess one would say, dance to your own tune
Yeah.
or march to the beat of your own drum. Because if you're there and the more trodden one with all the crowds, it perhaps doesn't allow you to really be yourself. And so to take that trouble to see, well, this is the one I choose. And then, as you say, forging your own path. And that is, it's a tough call, but boy, is it worth it. Over to you, Rachel.
Lovely. I love hearing this. So one of the reasons I chose this is there's two reasons. One was personal for me, and the other one was something when I thought of women, I thought this is such an apt poem, right, for women because most women that end up going into a leadership position, or actually just I suppose, living life and trying to get a job and being successful in a job, it really does require that you do need to forge your own path. You need to go, and take some steps to places where it might be lonely. And it's really essential to be able to find that path for yourself because it's about being authentic, right? Finding that true north, but it's being authentic to yourself and saying, okay, so which way do I want to go? And what is unique to me? What is uniquely me? Um, that I want to bring into the world, right? So it's easy for people to try and be someone else. It's very easy to be able to say, okay, everyone's going down this path, and I will go down the same path with everyone else, and kind of do it unconsciously. But it's more important to be able to say, okay, so what is that thing that makes your soul sing, right? What is that thing that makes you come alive? And being able to follow that can be lonely, right? It is a path that not everyone takes, but it is important to be able to do. And we come back to purpose. We're all here to be able to do something, right? It might just be to live and spread joy around us. It might be to, maybe to do a specific thing, and not go into leadership. It could also be that, right? But whatever it is, to be able to find that and be authentic to yourself and say, okay, so this is the one I want to go down, and I'm not sure where it does go down, and um, how do I manage this, even though it might be the one less traveled, right? So I think all women do this. We all have this at some point in our life. For me, it resonated with me because I love traveling, firstly. I'm always trying to travel down as many places as possible. But sometimes you don't know where it's going to go, right? And I can say from the authentic point of view, um, it feels like I've taken the road less traveled because I came from South Africa, moved to Europe in a very, very different environment, lived in the Netherlands, had to learn how to survive, how to learn different language, the same thing as you, Parameter. And also then I moved to France and now I'm trying to learn another language, right? But within that, it's also bringing in things, and it could be almost like, taking pieces of the path with you. If you see the leaves and maybe the flowers, it's how is this enriching you to be able to forge your own path and also enjoy where you're going. So I think from this point, think about where your life has gone. What are some of the choices you've made? And while we might want to, travel multiple roads, where's the path that leads you forward as well, right? It's not just where you are, but where is it leading you to, right? And to be purposeful in terms of it and saying, okay, so where is it leading me? Where do I want to go? So you can almost even imagine that you at the fork, right, where the two roads are diverging, to be able to say, okay, so where do I want to go? I could go through the more popular side, or I could go somewhere else where I feel like this is true to me, right? So think about that in terms of a reflection and also celebrate where you've come from. Okay, I think that's also important. Who you are right now is because of all the things you have traveled, all the things you've learned, all the skills that you've learned, but also most importantly, who you've become, right? Who you are. And sometimes, I like the thing of, I've heard the saying once, who were you before the world told you who to be, right? So coming back to yourself to be able to say, okay, so, people said you have to be a mother, you have to be married, you have to do this, you have to go here, you have to do all kinds of things, right? And women have this, I think, more than men. I'm not sure, men probably have a lot themselves, but really being able to say, okay, so with all this burden that people have put onto me, or stories that I've taken on from other people, how do you shed it and say, okay, so who am I? Who do I want to be? And this could be a moment for you to reflect on it and say, am I going down the right path? Do I want to continue here, or do I want to go and take a different road as well?
Just two things resonated with me from what you said, Rachel, and
Yeah.
that's how we work. We bounce ideas off each other. One, you talked about the loneliness. And indeed, women in leadership positions, even at any level, can have that loneliness. And this is why the space that we are creating through the group coaching also allows people to step out of that loneliness and be with others who have also chosen maybe different paths or who are facing challenges. That's the first thing. The second thing is when we talk about coaching, it is a moment to pause, to step back, to take the big view, to see oneself in context, and to be able to make intelligent choices. I really think that coaching is the most, I would say, wonderful intervention, which allows people to make correct choices. And now to weave in the idea of wisdom, it's as you say, you talk about self knowledge, and it is knowing ourselves well is
Mhm.
the foundation to wisdom because we cannot arrive at our own inner wisdom without having a clear knowledge of who we are. And a space like we're creating here allows people to really genuinely and honestly reflect about themselves and discover or uncover who they truly are. So I just thought I would link it back to the sapient space.
Yeah, I love that. I want to say one thing about loneliness as well. One of the things I noticed when I moved from South Africa, culture-wise, we'll talk about that at some other point as well, is it's very different in Europe. And the first time I thought I want to do something for women was after I'd been coaching multiple women, right? Executives, very senior women, look like they have everything together. And every single time I would speak about who do you have that you could share this burden with? With who do you have where you can, appear a woman, where you can actually share this and say, okay, this is something I'm struggling with. And continuously, every single time I had the person I was coaching, whoever she was, she said, I have no one. There's no one at my level, especially who's a woman, who I can share what I'm going through because most of my friends don't do the same thing. They're not in the same level. Some of them are at home, taking care of their kids. But there's no one that I have at a peer level that I can share some of the things I'm going through. And this is why I think the community is so important because this is not, again, it's not about coming up with solutions. It's really being able to share. There's the saying, what is it? A burden shared is a burden halved, right? Being able to share it really does help to be able to lighten the load and having that peer community to say, I'm struggling. I'm struggling. This is something I'm dealing with. And one thing I found is the coaches, the more people I've spoken to, the more I use one phrase so often where I say, "You're not the only one."
I do that too a lot. Absolutely.
Yeah.
People feel they're in such a unique space, but there are many others. And so that word that you brought in of connection, which builds community, is so important. You just, for
Yeah.
those 90 minutes maybe of the group coaching, you just feel you're unburdened and you less lonely. And then you can carry that energy. And then you might start noticing around you other people in your company, organization, industry, whatever, who probably would also welcome being reaching out. So it becomes a habit, and that also leads to the networking. So it's all always connected.
Yeah.
We
Love.
help each other. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, so this is something for you to take in if you are doing it online. Really think for yourself, right? When you think of your leadership journey and who you want to be, what piece of art inspires you? So it can be artwork, it can be a poem, it can be music, it can be poetry, it can be something else, right? So think about something that really inspires you and really connects to who do you want to be, right? Who are you? Who do you want to be? This is a good moment for you to be able to reflect and write down what that is, have it visual, visualizing something helps you to be authentic on a regular basis where you go, am I aligned to this? Is this something that's important to me? Yeah. Okay, so this would be sharing. So you can find someone to share, or you can reflect online in terms of what that artwork is, right? So we'll have a peer forum beneath it, so you can actually share online as well. What is that piece of artwork? We can also learn from each other, right? It's a nice piece of music or some art. Or even a piece of writing from books. I love reading books and having a little piece of something in there. Okay. All right. So group coaching, if you are not part of the group coaching, join because this would be something we will be talking about. But write down for yourself what is one challenge that you as a woman in leadership have, right? And how are you artfully weaving in who you are into your daily leadership style. So it's a good opportunity for reflection. Okay, so I told you we're going to come back to this, right? So, how did you see this? Did any of it show up for you today within those cards? So, perhaps, Paramita, if you want to go first, which card did you choose, and did you notice that in our interactions?
Yes. I chose presence, first of all, because it's one of the topics on which I'm most often invited to coach. Executive presence, gravitas, how we show up as leaders, how we just show up to ourselves in any group setting. And I believe that we as coaches, Rachel, you and I, we bring our full presence, whether it's to an individual session or to a session like the one we're leading here. And I believe that that is the one that showed up for me because I do believe both, I brought my full presence to this and so did you. So that's what showed up for me. And over to you now.
Great, wonderful. So I chose connection. It's good we didn't choose the same one. And I think, I mean, I've shared this with you so many times. Whenever I speak to you, I really do feel the connection because we seem to be aligned with certain things, and we show up in a real way. It's not to fake it, but we really are open to each other and we listen to each other. And you even mentioned it without even knowing I chose connection. You said you like how we bounce off each other, right? And I love that too. I think that is the weaving, of who we are and the conversations together. So if you whatever you've chosen, continue to do it throughout the day. Let's see how it shows up. But a key thing with this practice is that when you choose to focus on one of these things, it's really interesting how you start noticing them, right? So this exercise was really about noticing because most of the time we get so busy with life that we're focusing on tasks, right? We need to get through this. We need to sit in this meeting. We have to do this. We've got the next thing we have to get to, and we don't really notice the beauty of life. We don't notice the beauty of the interactions that we have. We don't notice the opportunities that exist for conversation or an opportunity for work. Let's be honest. We're also looking at different opportunities for you to develop different networks that you can build through this, right? So when you choose to focus on one thing, see how it shows up and how you actually start noticing it. So you can always come back to this, choose a different card for a different day. All right. And you already mentioned this before.
Absolutely. But it also comes from my original culture from India. It's called Atma Bodha,
Yeah.
which is the name of an absolutely brilliant text. And indeed, all the great philosophers have started with that. So in Greece, it was Aristotle. In India, it was the Shankaracharya. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is the starting point, right? So whenever leaders ask me, what should I do to be able to become a better leader, right? I always say the foundation is self-awareness. Learn to know yourself, right? Get to know yourself at a much deeper level, and through feedback. We've already mentioned feedback. Get feedback from people, right? Because this is the mirror that you have. When people hold up a mirror and say, "Hey, did you notice this?" Like I mentioned with my school psychologist, you don't know that what you have within yourself, right? And this helps you to build the wisdom to be able to say, okay, so this is something that I have within you, right? And when you start seeing how it shows up, it helps define you, and it helps you to have some confidence. I always say this when I'm leading large groups of leaders, right, on a training program, because they always look at me and start laughing because they think, okay, this cannot be possible. But when I qualified as a psychologist, I had to go through presentation skills, right? This was while we were doing our internship. It's a year-long internship, and I had to do some public speaking in front of groups of people, and I hated it. I hated public speaking. I did not want everyone looking at me. I did not remember everything, so sometimes I was in my head. I defined myself as a psychologist. I was the data person. I can analyze you, I can give you the data. This was who I am. I used to love sitting and reading. I was more stay at home, read stuff. I will write it, right? And I never thought that public speaking was for me. And I had to present at a psychology kind of event, and they were giving feedback on presentations. And I had presented my research at the time, and I dove for the seat because I just wanted to get out of the spotlight. Why is everyone looking at me? Can they just stop looking at me? And I went jumping for the seat, and I ran to sit down. And then, of course, everyone gives feedback, right? And one of the guys that was heading up, the panel to give some feedback, he started with something that I did not expect. He said, Rachel, when you speak, you have such presence in what you're saying, and it's so interesting that I want to keep hearing more. And for me, that blew my world completely, completely up because I was completely surprised. I could not believe that he had said that because I had thought, oh, I probably stumbled and also I forgot point one and three and I should have expanded and I didn't do this. And I was thinking of all these things I didn't do. Then when he said that, I was completely shocked. And I always say, like if younger me, 20-year-old me, were to meet me from today, she would probably start crying because she would not understand that I stand in front of large groups of leaders on a regular basis to talk to them because this is not something I would have ever seen myself do. So I think that's a really key thing of getting some feedback and being able to say, okay, wow, this is something that is within me, and that's where the wisdom comes from.
Mhm. Maybe I'll add just a little story because it's
Yeah.
about presence as well. And I was just put on stage at the age of 6. My teacher of my class just thought she knows how to enunciate well. She's clear in her speech. She'll be able to learn all these lines and she's be able to act. And so from a very young age, I was exposed to being on stage and just being able to fill a role and act. So that was one thing that came quite naturally to me. So I never had this fear of the public. And the other one was from very young age because I can be quite argumentative. And there's a brilliant book by the Nobel Prize economist called The Argumentative Indian by Amartya Sen. And I think there are 1 billion people and plus in India who are constantly arguing. And that gave me the edge of being a debater. So I was able to defend ideas and to be in public debates. So that's something I enjoyed a lot from a very young age as well, right through university, etc. So we're coming from different places, but we are here together doing the same thing and bringing different strengths to it.
Yeah, which is fantastic. It's really nice to be able to share that wisdom and to say, okay, this is what has defined me, right? And I think this is an important foundation for the next couple modules that we will be working with and carrying, really adding to our conversation. So we have come to the end of our session. So I think the key thing here is to always end. We've got so many things happening in our heads. So it's always good to be able to say, okay, so what's one thing you're walking away with? Usually I say one thing, and most people end up with a sentence or a paragraph. So I've added a sentence or a paragraph. So you can write it down for yourself if you are doing it online to be able to say, okay, so what's the one word or one sentence or one paragraph? We can add that in there that you're walking away with. So I think for me, the one word would be possibilities. Yeah. I like the fact of, there's so many possibilities to whoever's watching, whoever's participating in this. There's so many roads in terms of where you can go. And I'm going back to my first word, excited. I'm excited to be able to see where that leads. Paramita.
Yes, so I would say the one word is that I feel full in both my head and my heart with this experience that we have shared and opened up today. So I think the sharing and the openness of the sharing has also helped a lot. So it starts with share one word, and sharing itself has been an experience and the connection. And yes, I'm just walking away feeling fulfilled and feeling that we are being able to reveal and uncover what we set out to do for those who are there with us, either online or going to hear the recording and have an idea of what their adventure is going to be about.
Fantastic. So one last thing before we go is to say the next meeting that we will be having for the webinars for high heels and glass ceilings will be on the 21st of April, the same time, 12:30 to 2. If you do want to have different times or if you have different requests, please send us a message at info@thesapientspace.com and we will get back to you. We look forward to the next one.